CountryWide CONNECT with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.
Okay, so joining us now, we are going to be talking about AgriTech, and a recent event, AgriTech Unleashed in Auckland, has started a roadshow throughout the country about the regional nuances of AgriTech, and Brendan O'Connell, the CEO of AgriTech New Zealand, joins me. Thank you so much for your time, Brendan.
Great to join you, Sarah. Thanks for having us.
And so you've kicked off accelerating regional innovation across the country. What's the purpose of the regional-based events?
Well, really just recognising that sort of agri-tech as a sector turns up differently in different parts of the country. A lot of that, of course, is based on what are the growing systems and what's happening in different parts of, in the different regions, as well as the presence or non-presence of a university or how some of the education and research aspects are working within that particular region, you know, what sort of services are there. So we just see from previous experiences that agri-tech turns up differently around the country. And we know that we want to sort of understand and connect those communities of practice, and by understanding them better we can sort of look at what a system of influence looks like when we're trying to realise the potential of agri-tech for New Zealand.
Why do certain agri-tech companies choose to base themselves in different locations around New Zealand?
I mean, a big part of it is, you know, where people live and where people innovate. You know, they're coming from, often from either from the universities, or they're connected to what's happening on farms and orchards in that particular region. So there's just a natural regional impact. I mean, you see that in agriculture everywhere. You know, it is a localized activity which has impacts beyond that, and so we just see that location-based aspect to it being really important in terms of understanding what's driving agri-tech, both in terms of research, of innovations, and of course a sort of a deployment and understanding of it on the land.
The reason I ask that is if you think of places like Silicon Valley, whereby collaboration can happen when people come together and coexist, and it's easier for the ecosystem to, but you're saying nurturing that regionality is really important for diversity of thought, different ways of innovation being bred, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't see, you know, Silicon Valley, for all we can learn from there and see in terms of how that ecosystem dynamic works. It's not the world center of agri-tech. And then New Zealand has the advantage that, you know, even between our regions, we're not that disconnected. So we already have that sort of ecosystem dynamic. There's just nuances to it in terms of, well, you know, what are the themes and current insights, you know, being understood in Auckland compared to what's being understood in Waikato, you know, and there's connections between those things. Connecting them is easy in New Zealand. There's only 5 million of us, 1.5 degrees of separation. That's not the challenge for us. We can have that level of connectivity that Silicon Valley brings just naturally from the population size we've got. But then there's some particular nuances to go, what's this meaning when we're really trying to unpack and unsize things in terms of either innovation or deployment, which is a key part of that in terms of New Zealand as an adopter of technology, but also a proving ground for technology.
Does it make a difference where you're based with regards to your funding opportunities and regional development funds wanting to keep agri-tech companies based in their region from an employment perspective? Is there hotspots that sort of help enable growth?
Oh, I think there's some hotspots that are sort of, you know, connecting really well and doing some good work. And so I don't know whether it's fully influential on the presence or non-presence of funding, but it definitely, you know, there are definitely some regions where, you know, there's really strong engagement, and therefore connecting innovators to funders, connecting innovators to growers is just happening that little bit easier in that region, and that's a really positive dynamic. I don't think there's not like a we're not trying to gamify this and compare regions in any way, but we're just sort of recognizing where good things are happening and trying to draw that out.
Yeah, no, and there is some really good supportive regional environments that we know of, and some of those hotspots that have emerged with AgriTech New Zealand. So with regards to strengthening the network here at home, how does that benefit the export potential and support of AgriTech New Zealand to wrap around that network abroad?
So I think the joined up piece is a little bit easier to connect with when you've got sort of global scale partners looking in, and it's even, to be honest, it even goes beyond New Zealand. With some of the global scale partners that we are connecting with and want to connect with more, even a joint New Zealand Australia approach is becoming really important. As you know, there's been a lot of news and activity around Halter's success in the last while, which is a great indicator of what's possible from AgriTech. And I've been receiving calls from groups in Colorado and other places who are going, hey, just hearing more and more about what's happening in terms of New Zealand AgriTech, mainly informed by Kiwis turning up at Colorado bars who happen to be working for Halter on a Friday night. I don't know if they're working on Friday night, but they're represented as still working with Halter on the Friday night. And so those groups are coming in and sort of wanting to understand how they can interact. And they're doing that both with New Zealand and Australia, even though we might be the lead in that one. There's other circumstances where groups are coming in and trying to understand Australia and tagging on a visit to New Zealand. So the regional piece goes beyond just what's happening in our regions, and also what happens regionally across both New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah. I'd be interested to understand AgriTech New Zealand's, election manifesto, and I know that there was a lot of sort of joined up with Tech New Zealand, but specifically, Brendan, are you in a position yet to roll out your wishes going into this election?
Oh, you're catching us at sort of the cutting edge of that. We're just about to be ready to talk about it in more complete terms, Sarah. But if I was to call out one thing, I'd first of all I'd highlight that we've currently sized the sector at between 2 and 3 billion. That's well agreed in terms of the current level of data that we've gotten. Some real data points we had a couple of years ago. We know that the agri-tech sector has the potential to be as big as the dairy sector for New Zealand. And so from the data that we've got and the rates of growth that we've seen, for agri-tech to be a contributor to New Zealand in the realm of 30 billion, as dairy was last year in the SOPI report, that potential exists there. But we need some new relationships and some new infrastructure to continue that rate of growth and develop the type of capability that would deliver on that type of impact. A lot of that is addressing the fragmentation that there is in terms of agency supports and other industry activities. And so looking at a joined up level of activity between the likes of MB, MPI, Invest New Zealand, work that we're doing, work that others, we think that, addressing that fragmentation would have a big impact. So that'll be a big part of our work. That's come through in Technology New Zealand's own manifesto in terms of let's look at getting past this sort of this pendulum effect that we have of policies being stopped and started. It's one of the biggest impacts we're seeing in New Zealand in terms of just things being started and then being stopped. Trying to get some bipartisan support of what do we actually see a future for New Zealand through technology and through all the other aspects of the New Zealand economy and other aspects of the future for New Zealand coming together. And so reducing that fragmentation and looking at a longer term shared vision of what can happen.
It's interesting that you brought that up, Brendan, because it just showcases how much that pendulum swing affects the whole ecosystem of agri, not just certain parts. So you can't get capital certainty for investment long term if you don't have the certainty and the rollout of, say, freshwater farm plan regulation, and the stopping and starting just must turn off investors.
It does. It creates uncertainty in terms of exactly what are you dealing with. Can you commit to a particular region? Do you know what it is when it changes in its shape and form? Over those periods. And so yeah, relationships. Any decent relationship is built over time, and is built over a level of certainty. Hopefully, a level of curiosity as well, but a level of certainty around what are the conditions we're working with, and we just see, unnecessary shifts. I think the difference between our even our centre right and our centre left leadership, there's not actually that much difference. And so to get to a point where we have a shared vision, so where we say we're open for business, let's have some clarity around the business that we're in. And let's do that. Let's create that in a view that has a long-term view we can all commit to. And you might theme it or thematically adjust it slightly depending on the current government, but actually the direction of travel is much the same.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you so much, Brendan O'Connell, the CEO of AgriTech New Zealand. And if you're interested in the AgriTech Unleashed events, they are spread throughout the year, in Tauranga in August and in Dunedin in November. All the information is on the AgriTech NZ website. Thank you, Brendan, for your time.
Welcome, Sarah, anytime.
CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.